It was early October, and the air had that crisp bite that made the evenings feel quieter than usual. Danielle had just started working the night shift at Mercy General, a mid-sized hospital tucked on the edge of town. Her 5-year-old daughter, Lily, had never been left with anyone but family before. But with her mom hours away and her ex completely out of the picture, she needed help fast. Erin showed up like a godsend. Mid-20s, clean-cut, soft-spoken, with glowing references from a neighborhood Facebook group. She had this calming presence, the kind that made you feel like things would be fine even when they weren't. The first night Erin babysat, the apartment smelled faintly of cinnamon and lavender when Danielle got home. The dishes were done, Lily was asleep, and soft lullaby music played from a speaker in the corner. Everything seemed perfect. Too perfect. Over the next few weeks, Erin became part of the routine like she'd always belonged there. She'd arrive just before dusk, her hair always tied neatly back, her voice soft and measured. Lily adored her. Danielle would sometimes come home to find them giggling over crafts or reading in a cozy blanket fort lit with battery-powered fairy lights. Erin even started folding laundry, cleaning out the fridge, leaving little notes with reminders on Post-its stuck to the door. At first, Danielle felt grateful, but then it started getting weird. The first thing that set her on edge was the baby monitor. One night after a long shift, Danielle flicked it on out of habit before bed. For a second, the screen stayed black. Then it fizzled to life, showing Lily asleep, curled up in bed. Erin stood at the foot of the bed, completely still, just watching her. She wasn't touching anything, wasn't doing anything, just staring. Danielle watched, breath caught in her throat, too tired to make sense of it. But by morning, Erin was gone, and Lily was happily eating pancakes. It felt like a dream. Then came the drawings. At first, they were innocent enough. Crayon scribbles of Lily, Erin, and Danielle holding hands under a sun. But one afternoon, Danielle noticed a new one tucked under Lily's pillow. It showed their apartment, crudely drawn, with Danielle crossed out in thick red marker, and just Lily and Erin inside. A small figure stood in the window, smiling, with long, jagged black lines for arms. Danielle asked Lily about it. The little girl shrugged and said, "It's our secret friend. Erin says you wouldn't like the game." Danielle started coming home early, unannounced. Twice she found the apartment dark. No cartoons, no snacks out, no toys. Once she opened the front door and heard hushed whispers from Lily's room. But when she stepped in, Erin was sitting calmly with Lily, brushing her hair, as if nothing had happened. Erin's eyes met hers in the mirror. That was the first time Danielle noticed something hollow in her expression, like a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She installed a security cam in the living room without telling Erin. One night, she watched from her phone during a break. Erin was standing in front of the couch, facing the camera, arms by her sides, not moving. She stayed like that for 12 straight minutes, just staring into the lens, motionless. Danielle turned it off. Her hands were shaking. Then, Lily started sleepwalking. At least that's what Danielle told herself it was. She'd find her standing in the hallway, eyes wide open but empty, whispering things like, "Don't wake the other me." Once, Danielle caught her trying to unlock the front door in the middle of the night, barefoot and silent. The worst was the basement. Danielle rarely went down there. Just concrete floors, old paint cans, spider webs. But one evening, after noticing muddy prints by the basement door, she crept down while Erin and Lily were occupied. The light didn't work. Using her phone flashlight, She stepped slowly into the musty darkness. The air felt damp and wrong. In the far corner, someone had arranged a small circle of melted candles, and in the middle, a child's doll sat with its eyes gouged out, surrounded by chicken bones and dried flower petals. On the wall behind it, scratched faintly into the cinder block, were the words, "She's almost ready." Danielle backed up the stairs in silence, heart pounding so hard she thought she might pass out. When she opened the basement door, Aaron was standing in the kitchen, holding Lily's favorite stuffed bunny, smiling softly. "You weren't supposed to see that," she said. Danielle didn't remember making the decision to run. Her body just moved. She snatched Lily from the couch mid-nap, one arm wrapped around her small torso, and bolted into the bedroom, slamming the door and locking it in one motion. Her breath came out in short, sharp bursts as she pressed her back against the door. The house had gone unnervingly still. No footsteps, no creaks. Just that awful silence pressing in on her like heavy fog. Lily stirred in her arms, groggy, confused. Danielle whispered that it was a game, that they had to be very, very quiet. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand. No signal, not even a bar. Her eyes scanned the room, landing on the window. Second floor, 15 feet to the ground. No way Lily could make that without getting hurt. Then came the knock. Software. Deliberate. Right against the wood, near her ear. 3 taps. Then a pause. Aaron's voice slid through the door like honey over a razor blade. Calm. Controlled. "Danielle, you weren't supposed to see it yet. But it's okay. We can still do this the right way." Danielle's eyes darted around the room. Her gaze landed on the closet. She tucked Lily inside, whispered for her not to move, not to make a sound. As she turned back toward the door, she heard the sound of metal dragging across wood, something sharp scraping slowly, back and forth. "You think locking a door changes anything?" Aaron's voice dropped into something deeper, something wrong. "You have no idea what you've brought her into." Suddenly the lights flickered. The air grew thick, hot, heavy like the room was shrinking. Danielle grabbed a lamp from the bedside table, the ceramic cold and slick in her sweaty palms. Then, bang, the doorframe cracked, a long splinter shooting out from the pressure of a sudden full-force kick. A second bang, then a third. On the fourth, the lock gave. The door slammed open with a crash, hitting the wall so hard it knocked down a framed photo. Erin stood there in the doorway, barefoot, her clothes soaked in something dark. Her eyes were wide and unblinking, face pale but flushed around the cheeks. In her right hand, she clutched a kitchen knife. Danielle screamed and hurled the lamp. It shattered against Erin's shoulder, buying just enough time to push past her. She sprinted toward the front door, barefoot, the hardwood cold underfoot. Lily already scrambling out of the closet behind her. Erin let out a guttural, inhuman yell and gave chase. Danielle grabbed her daughter's hand and yanked the door open. Erin lunged, slashing, blade nicking Danielle's shoulder as they dove out onto the porch. Cold air blasted her skin. A neighbor's porch light flicked on. Somewhere, a dog barked. Danielle screamed, not words, just sound, raw, desperate animal. Erin froze, knife halfway raised, silhouetted in the doorway. And just like that, she stepped back, expression blank, and quietly shut the door. The police came 12 minutes later, but Erin was gone. Danielle and Lily never went back to that apartment, The police found the basement exactly as she described. Candles melted into the concrete, the gouged doll, the bones, the words scratched into the wall. But there were no fingerprints, no blood, no trace of herein. Her ID turned out to be fake. The glowing references, all dead ends. Nobody in the Facebook group remembered posting them. The phone number she used to apply was registered under a prepaid burner that went cold the same night. They stayed with Danielle's sister for a while, in a cramped guest room that always smelled faintly of mothballs and detergent. Lily stopped talking for almost 2 weeks. When she finally did, the first thing she said was, "Herein says we moved too early." Danielle told herself it was just trauma, just a kid trying to make sense of things. But then Lily started drawing again. Pages and pages, all the same. Figures with no faces, just long black mouths and hands that stretched down to their feet. Months passed. Danielle installed cameras in every room of the new house, slept with the lights on. She never saw Herein again. But every so often, Lily would wake up screaming, clawing at her own skin, crying that the second Herein was watching her from the corner. And one morning, Danielle found a sticky note on the fridge, written in the same rounded, perfect handwriting she hadn't seen in nearly a year. It said, "Much better house. No basements this time. I like it." Lily still talks in her sleep, sometimes whispering things in a voice that isn't hers. The sticky notes keep showing up, always in the kitchen, always in Erin's handwriting. No signs of a break-in, just the faint smell of lavender and something rotting beneath it. It was just past midnight when Rachel pulled off the interstate, bone-tired and squinting through the fog curling low across the empty road. Her windshield wipers dragged in slow rhythm, squeaking over streaked glass. She spotted a lone gas station, fluorescent lights flickering like they were on their last breath. The place looked half abandoned, but she needed gas and caffeine before the last 2-hour stretch to her cousin's place. Gravel crunched under her tires as she rolled up to the pump. Everything felt off. The air hung heavy, thick with the sour stench of old oil and mildew. The silence pressed in around her. Then the door creaked open, and a man stepped out from behind the counter. He smiled too wide. His name tag said Dave. Dave waved her inside like he'd been waiting for her. Rachel hesitated, then followed, the glass door pushing open with a sticky groan. The inside of the station was dim, humming with the low buzz of flickering lights. Old snack bags hung limp on wire racks. The soda cooler dripped steadily onto cracked tiles, and the air smelled like a mix of burned coffee and moldy drywall. Dave stood behind the counter, tapping his fingers slowly against the laminate, his smile fixed and unblinking. He offered her coffee, insisting it was fresh. The pot looked like it had been sitting there since the Clinton administration, but she accepted, more out of politeness than anything. She sipped, instantly regretted it. It was bitter, metallic, and way too hot. He watched her take that first sip like he was waiting for a reaction. She forced a nod, then turned away, pretending to browse. Something felt wrong. The place looked stuck in time. Posters on the walls advertised phone cards and DVDs, the kind no one sold anymore. A dusty payphone hung in the corner, receiver dangling. When she asked if he had Wi-Fi, Dave just smiled wider and said, "No need." Storms knocking out signals all night. But she checked anyway. No service. Not even a single bar. It was like the building was cut off from everything. As she walked the aisles, she started noticing things. A girl's pink backpack shoved awkwardly behind the beef jerky stand. A single child's shoe half hidden under a shelf. Behind the counter, next to Dave's foot, was a stained teddy bear missing one eye. Rachel's stomach knotted. She asked about the restroom, just to break the tension. He nodded toward the back, motioning down a narrow hall. The hallway was colder than the rest of the store, the kind of cold that sinks into your skin and stays there. Fluorescent bulbs flickered overhead, casting jittery shadows on the stained tile. The door at the end said, "Employees only," but the actual restroom was just before it, the door crooked on its hinges. As she walked past the employee door, she heard something, a soft rustling, like someone shifting their weight. Then a thud, muffled, but there. She stepped back, heart pounding, and pressed her ear to the door. Nothing. She tried the knob. Locked. Dave's voice came from behind her, closer than she expected. "Sorry about the mess back there. We're, remodeling." Rachel turned. He was standing just a few feet away, hands in his pockets, eyes steady. She hadn't heard him come down the hall. That smile again, too wide, too clean. She mumbled something about getting back on the road and walked fast toward the front. When she got back to her car, she found her driver's side door wide open. She was sure she'd locked it. Her duffel bag had been unzipped. Her phone, tucked into the side pouch, was missing. She looked back toward the station. Dave was standing at the window, watching her, still smiling. Rachel's hands fumbled for the ignition, breath catching in her throat. The keys weren't there. Not in the ignition, not on the seat, not on the floor. She whipped her head around, eyes darting in every direction, panic clamping down on her chest like a vice. The fog had thickened outside, swallowing the edge of the road, wrapping the gas station in a pale, suffocating glow. Her duffel sat limp in the passenger seat, zipper open like a split wound. She looked back at the window. Dave was no longer there. A metallic click came from the rear of the car. The trunk. Rachel shot out of the driver's seat, gravel crunching under her boots as she bolted around the back. The trunk was cracked open. She reached for it, hands trembling, and threw it up. Empty. But the lining inside had been peeled back, revealing rusted metal beneath, and carved into the floor were numbers. Dozens of them. Phone numbers, dates, initials, burned into the metal with a soldering iron. A photo sat folded neatly in the corner, grainy, faded. A girl with dark hair standing in this very parking lot, eyes wide, mid-smile. The date scribbled in the corner was last year. Rachel backed away, her lungs forgetting how to breathe. Then came the sound of the lock. She turned just in time to see Dave stepping out from the side of the building, his hand pulling a long chain taut behind him. Attached to it was a tire iron, swinging gently like a pendulum. His face was expressionless now, the grin gone. His eyes were locked on hers, empty of anything human. She turned and ran. The fog clung to her skin, cold and damp, dragging against her limbs as if it had weight. She sprinted toward the tree line across the road, lungs burning, feet slipping on wet grass. Behind her, she heard the steady crunch of boots on gravel, slow, deliberate, like he wasn't in a hurry, like he knew. Branches slapped her arms, twigs snapping underfoot as she tore into the woods. She didn't stop until the light from the station disappeared completely. Darkness closed in, disorienting and thick. Her pulse was a roar in her ears. She crouched behind a fallen log, chest heaving, trying not to sob. That's when she saw it, dim red light blinking from the forest floor. Her phone. Lying face up, screen cracked, flashlight on, blinking like a beacon. Propped against a tree stump next to it was a second photo. This one was of her, taken from behind, walking toward the gas station. And below it, in a neat scrawl, were the words, "You took longer than the others." Rachel never found the road again. When the sheriff's department responded to an anonymous 911 hang-up pinged from that stretch of highway, they found her car parked perfectly by the pump, keys neatly placed on the dash, windows rolled up. Her duffel was zipped and untouched. There was no sign of a struggle. The gas station, if it had ever been there, wasn't. Just a rotting foundation smothered in ivy, broken tiles swallowed by weeds. No sign of Dave, no cameras, no coffee pot. Just silence. Weeks later, her cousin received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was Rachel's cracked phone. The lock screen was a still frame from a video, grainy security cam footage showing her stepping through the glass door of a gas station bathed in buzzing light. Behind her, faint and half obscured, a man stood outside, watching her enter. His face was turned toward the camera. No expression, no eyes. Her cousin gave the phone to police. The footage had no metadata, no file information, no way to trace it. A technician who examined the video said something else was odd. Frame by frame, Rachel's reflection in the glass wasn't her. It was someone taller, thinner, with their head tilted just slightly too far to one side, like it was listening. Rachel's body was never found. But once a year, always in late October, travelers on that same foggy stretch sometimes report seeing a faint red glow through the trees, a blinking light. And if they stop, some say they hear the distant ding of a doorbell and a voice offering coffee from just beyond the mist. The photo on Rachel's lock screen keeps changing. Each month, a new still frame, showing her deeper in the woods. Last week, she wasn't alone. A second figure stood beside her, face blurred, hand resting on her shoulder. No one can explain how the updates keep coming. After college, Ethan moved to Portland, with barely enough cash to cover first month's rent and a Craigslist ad promising a chill, drama-free roommate. That's how he met Ryan. The guy seemed normal enough, quiet, punctual, paid his half on time. He kept to himself, worked nights, didn't party. The apartment was small but clean, tucked above an old bookstore that always smelled faintly like damp paper and incense. For the first couple weeks, things felt easy. Ryan cooked sometimes, mostly ramen and eggs, always with this weird metal spatula that clinked unnaturally against the pan. He never had guests, never took phone calls, always locked his door. At first, Ethan didn't think much of it. Some people were just private. But the little things started stacking up. Ryan always left for work just after sunset. Never before, never late. His room stayed locked, even when he was home. And the one time Ethan asked to borrow a charger, Ryan tensed, just slightly, but enough to make the air feel heavier. Then there was the humming. Late at night, faint, mechanical, like an old fridge motor mixed with static coming from Ryan's room. It would start around 2 a.m. and go on for hours. One night, Ethan pressed his ear to the door and swore he heard voices, low, murmuring, overlapping. But when he knocked, the noise stopped instantly. Ryan opened the door half an inch, eyes bloodshot and pupils too wide. Said he was meditating. Weirder still, Ethan kept finding things in places they didn't belong. His toothbrush was damp before he used it. His laptop screen had smudge marks shaped like fingerprints, but not his. His closet door, always shut before bed, would be open just an inch in the morning, as if someone had stood there and watched. One evening, after Ryan left for work, Ethan noticed the hallway closet was ajar. Tucked behind the vacuum cleaner was a cardboard box labeled Tools. Inside were wires, old phones, SIM cards, a GoPro, and at least 3 USB drives. The box smelled like metal and mildew. His name was sharpied on the inside flap. The next morning, Ryan left a note on the fridge. "Don't snoop. You won't like what you find." It wasn't signed. Ethan hadn't told him about the box. His stomach twisted in on itself. That night, while brushing his teeth, he caught a red light blinking from inside the air vent across the room. It blinked once, paused, then blinked again. A slow, steady rhythm, watching. Ethan waited until Ryan left again. Same time as always, just after dark. The moment the front door clicked shut, he grabbed the spare lockpick kit his cousin gave him as a joke gift months back. His hands were slick with sweat, breath shallow, chest tight. The hallway felt colder than usual, like the air itself was trying to warn him off. Ryan's bedroom door opened with a soft click that echoed louder than it should have. Inside, the light was low, dimmed by blackout curtains that were duct taped to the wall. The air smelled faintly of plastic, sweat, and something sickly sweet, like rotting fruit under the bed. The room was meticulous. A twin bed, sheets perfectly tucked. A desk lined with labeled hard drives and a wall-mounted monitor showing a grid of paused footage, each frame a different room. Ethan's breath caught when he realized one of the screens showed his bedroom. Another showed the shared bathroom. One was dark until he saw a faint movement and realized it was the inside of a vent. His vent. He reached for the mouse and clicked through the footage. Dozens of files, all time-stamped, all labeled by his name. Then he heard the front door creak open. He froze. Ryan was back, early. No footsteps, just that slow creaking and the sudden feeling that the air had thickened. Ethan killed the monitor, slipped into the closet, and pulled the door almost shut. From the crack between slats, he saw Ryan step into the room without looking around. His expression was blank, eyes focused like he was in a trance. He walked to the desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out something small and black, a flash drive. He plugged it in, and a new folder popped up. Phase 2, Execution. Inside were photos of Ethan sleeping, eating, showering. One showed Ethan at his desk with a timestamp from 2 hours ago, a time Ryan shouldn't have even been home. Another image chilled him to the bone. It showed Ethan standing in the kitchen, but just behind him, reflected faintly in the microwave door, was Ryan, watching from the hallway, completely still, almost blending with the wall. Ethan's breath caught too loud. Ryan turned slowly, eyes landing directly on the closet door. He walked over, step by deliberate step, until his shadow swallowed the narrow slats. He didn't knock. He just whispered, "You shouldn't have opened the door." The closet flung open, and everything went black. Ethan woke up on the floor, face pressed against coarse carpet, mouth dry and tasting of metal. His wrists ached, no restraints, but deep red marks wrapped around them like he'd been bound for hours. The room was dark, humming faintly. The the glow from the monitor the only light. Ryan was gone. The files were gone too. Every hard drive wiped. The desk drawers empty, the bed stripped. No trace of what he'd seen remained. The police didn't believe him. No evidence, no signs of forced entry, no surveillance, no Ryan. The lease had only Ethan's name. No record of a roommate. Nothing in the building's records. Even the downstairs neighbor said she never saw anyone else come or go. Ethan's ID and credit cards had been replaced in his wallet with crisp, blank cards. Just white plastic. He couldn't remember the last time he saw Ryan's full face in daylight. He moved out 2 days later, left the city a week after that. But at night, even in a new place with brand new locks and blacked out windows, he still hears it. That same faint humming, always around 2 a.m. Once he opened his closet to grab a jacket and found a new duffel bag sitting there, zipped tight. Inside were clothes, his size, a toothbrush, a note that read, "Try again. Be quieter this time." He doesn't sleep much anymore. The vents tick sometimes, even when the heat's off. The blinking red light comes and goes. But the part that scares him the most is the reflection. Some nights, when he passes a mirror, it lags, just for a second, before catching up. Sometimes, Ethan wakes up to the closet door cracked open, just an inch, always facing the bed. He swears he closed it. Once, he found shoe prints in the hallway, bare and wet, leading to the vent. They weren't his. The mirror that night didn't show him at all.